Hey, what's up everybody? It's Mountlover bringing you yet another fully comprehensive character breakdown, this time for Akuma in Street Fighter V. Now, Akuma was the first character that I ever mained in a Street Fighter game, and in every iteration that he's ever been in, he's usually been top tier, if not close to top tier, since Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which is where he made his debut. For those of you not familiar with the character and his background, he is the brother to the mentor of Ryu and Ken, which means that he bears the same Shoto fighting style, but he bears a more lethal version of it. And you can generally think of him as having the best of both worlds when it comes to Ryu and Ken's toolsets. He also has some pretty explosive damage output. As you can see, he's got no problems at all breaking 300 damage for a meterless combo, which is pretty much a benchmark for the entire cast. If you could break 300 meterless, you've got amazing damage output. He also has a very unique ability in his air fireball, which basically serves as a kind of like a better version of a dive kick, in that it stuffs anti-airs almost 100% of the time. And especially with the Season 2 changes where nobody has invincible DPs for free anymore, that air fireball is now especially powerful. I'd recommend Akuma for anybody who likes to jump, who likes to take to the skies, because Akuma not only has very powerful jump-in options, he also has very powerful anti-air options, and so no matter who you're up against on the entirety of the roster, Akuma will have air superiority over them. I also recommend him for anybody who likes to sort of seal off options for your opponent, because Akuma basically has tools to make the opponent fear him. He's got that Raging Demon, which is a scary tool to have locked and loaded. Once Akuma has full super and V-trigger, pretty much the opponent has to hesitate and think before they do anything like throw a fireball, dash, jump with a heavy. Similar to when Guile's locked and loaded with his full super and V-trigger. Another thing I should mention about Akuma is that while he is easy to pick up and be successful with, he's also difficult to master. And part of that stems from his V-skill combos. These are surprisingly hard to do. For anybody familiar with Karen, I would rate the V-skill combos to be on par in terms of difficulty with Karen's crouching medium kick into Tenko, stuff like that. Just because, just like Karen's ability to cancel normals into Tenko, the timing changes depending on the normal that you're canceling from. And I'll go more in detail on that when I look at his normals and specials. Alright, we're going to follow the same pattern as my last guide here, and we're going to get started talking about Akuma's special moves before we go into his normals, just so that you can know which specials cancel from which normals, etc, etc. So let's just get started with the basics of the basics. Akuma's Fireball, his Go Hadouken. So as you'll notice here, Akuma's Fireball does not travel the full length of the screen. He's actually got 3 different variants, all 3 of which travel at different lengths before disappearing. He's got his Heavy, which only travels this far. And then he's got his Medium, which travels a lot further, and then his Light, which you can count on to travel full screen, although if the opponent backs up, it will still wear off. Matter of fact, it only travels marginally further than the Medium there. So you'll notice that when I throw these fireballs, they don't just fade out, they sort of like they sort of like puff into this little cloud of purple. And the reason for that is that these fireballs, they actually, unlike Ryu's and Ken's, they knock down on hit, but they only knock down on hit at a specific range, at 2 specific ranges to be exact. And so with the Light, that ranges at maximum distance and at point blank. And then with Medium, it's point blank, and then it's also at that range right there where it puffs into a cloud of smoke. And then with Heavy, it's point blank, and then right there, sort of like half screen. And so you want to keep this in mind. If you want the fireball to knock down, then you have to use the right one for the right situation. However, you'll be totally fine just using Light for every situation, because it still knocks down at point blank range. All 3 fireballs do the exact same amount of damage, so you're not going to miss out on damage for doing variant strengths. And Light just travels the furthest. So if for some unforeseen reason the opponent backs up, the Light can chase them down pretty effectively there. Not much to say here, except for the fact that these fireballs are pretty damned punishable on block. You can look at these similarly to Ken's fireballs, in that you do not want to be using them just at point-blank range as part of a block string. You will get punished for those. The EX version, however, is safe. It's actually plus on block. So you can go ahead and use that one if you want to just keep yourself safe or keep applying pressure after the end of a block string. So a lot of times you'll find yourself doing stuff like this, just to keep yourself safe and keep your block string going, or just to keep yourself plus rather. So what is the usage of these fireballs? Well, the normal fireballs are best used as sort of an extended poke. Akuma's normals tend to be a little bit lacking in the range department, and so a lot of times you'll find yourself at about this range, and you'll want to harass the opponent. You'll want to prevent them from doing whatever they want, because a lot of people can actually reach you from this far. We've got characters like Urien who just can reach out and touch you from across the screen. And so if you want to harass and prevent them from just doing whatever they want, light fireball is a good way to do that. Naturally, as with any fireball, you don't want to be too predictable with these. But you should think of these as basically just an extended poke. This is Akuma's standing medium kick, for lack of a better standing medium kick, essentially. And then the EX version, not only is it plus on block, and it knocks down at every range, it can also be used for certain juggle combos. I mean, you probably never ever want to spend the meter to actually get that small juggle, but it's just important to know that you can do stuff like combo with an EX fireball juggle. And it's important to know that because of the fact that there are ways to get those same properties in that fireball without having to spend any meter, and I'll get to that later. Next up, let's talk about his air fireball. Just the air counterpart to the Go Hadoken, the Zanku Hadoken. And similarly to the normal fireballs, these travel different distances depending on which button you press. The light travels sort of at the shallowest arc, and the heavy travels the farthest. And then the medium travels somewhere in between, really. It's not hugely noticeable between the light and the medium and the heavy, but between the light and the heavy, that's a big difference that you want to keep in mind. And these fireballs are amazing. These fireballs single-handedly give Akuma air superiority over everybody in the game. And the reason for this is because you can think of these as sort of extended dive kicks. Dive kicks that can't really be anti-aired by conventional means. You can still punch through them with anything with invincible startup, and you can still air-to-air these. But a lot of characters have an optimal grounded anti-air that they prefer to use because it gives them some sort of setup afterwards, and this will stuff those 100% of the time. And once you train your opponent with these air fireballs to stop anti-airing in the most conventional way that they're used to anti-airing, then you can start mixing it up with the normal jump-ins and catching them off guard. So since these air fireballs, just like dive kicks, can be so variant in the jump arcs that you use, and the height that you let them go, and at the height at which they connect, it's hard to know what the frame data on these fireballs is. And so what I'm going to give you is 2 quick and easy rules to know when your fireballs are comboable and when they're plus. So the first thing that you should know is that there's 2 ranges at which you can safely throw these fireballs. One of which is right about here, which is pretty much the same as normal jump-in range. Anywhere that you would jump in for a combo, like let's say you get the stun and you just want an optimal jump-in combo, that range, that's the first range that you have to consider. And here, the fireball that you want to throw is on your way down, you want to throw a light fireball. Now this version is comboable on hit, but it is minus on block. So you actually want to hit confirm this one. You want to visually confirm, did the fireball connect or did it get blocked? If it connected, you have a combo. And if it got blocked, then you have to just succeed your turn. Because you will get counter hit if you try to do anything else. You can also try to risk it with like a EXDP or something, but I wouldn't advise doing that all too often. And then the second, more powerful range is over here. This is well beyond jump-in range, and so your opponent is probably not going to be expecting you to jump in from this range. But if you do this too often, they will be expecting you to throw an air fireball from this range. And so it is a lot more predictable to throw it from here. However, in exchange for that extra predictability, what you get is an air fireball that is not only comboable on hit, but it's actually plus on block. And the way that you do this is you basically just throw the fireball at the apex of your jump. And because the air fireball takes so long to travel, you land on the ground at virtually the same time. And you, a lot of times you'll find yourself in a situation that's plus. Alright, next let's take a moment to talk about his EX Fireball. Now the EX Fireball, it has a completely different usage from his normal air fireballs. Let me quickly show you what this looks like. So his EX Fireball, instead of shooting 2 fireballs like he does in previous Street Fighter games, he just fires a powered up single version of the fireball. Sort of like, this is actually exactly his Shinku Zanku Hadouken, his super version of the air fireball from previous games. Except without the super flash. And so what you have to consider is that there's 2 hits here. Or rather, there's a lot of hits, but there's 2 different like segments here in terms of active frames. This purple ball that Akuma initially puts out to charge up the air fireball, that has its own hitbox. And then he shoots the follow-up regardless of whether or not that first hitbox connects. But so you can end up with situations like this, where the first hit of the EX air fireball launches the opponent up into the air, and then the second hit combos. And so this can be useful for a lot of situations where your opponent has an answer to air fireball, if you want to mix it up even further between jump in, air fireball, and air EX fireball. Sort of completely halt your air momentum and sort of beat out any air-to-airs that might be coming your way. And another way that it's useful is you can use this, you can actually connect with this as an instant air. It's actually, it's very similar to Chun's instant air legs. Although I don't know if there's a minimum height limit on it. You can just do it. And the reason this is useful is you can use it as a shimmy tool or just as a pressure tool. It's not as useful as Chun's Season 1 instant air legs, but it is pretty much the same as where her instant air legs sit now in Season 2, in that they whiff crouching opponents. So you can't really count on this too much. However, it is a pretty powerful tool for catching your opponent off guard, or for shimmying. If you think your opponent's going to throw, you can just bam, go for an instant air fireball. Alright, and if you think we're done talking about fireballs, you've got another thing coming, because Akuma has yet another variant of his fireball, and this is the Sekya Go Shosha, or we can just call it Red Fireball. Now again, this has 3 different versions, and the EX version, all of which are used for pretty similar circumstances, but let's go ahead and go over the differences here. So we've got Light Red Fireball, which has a... compared to normal fireballs, it's a slow startup, but compared to the rest of the red fireballs, it's a pretty quick startup. It also travels a lot slower than the normal fireballs. And it only does 1 hit. And then we've got medium, which travels faster, and it takes a little bit longer to start up, but it does 2 hits. And then we've got heavy, which takes the longest to start up out of the 3, and it does 3 hits. Now this 3-hit version of Red Fireball is incredibly powerful, because nobody else in the game can get 3 fireball hits out this quickly. Even Guile with his EX booms. If you can get this Red Fireball on the screen, he will not be able to punch it down. And then finally we've got the EX Red Fireball, which travels... I'm not sure if it travels faster, if it starts up faster than the Light Fireball, but it definitely starts up faster than the Heavy Red Fireball, somewhere between those 2. And it does 4 hits. Now this is an extremely powerful tool. It's a little bit overkill when you think about it, actually. The only time I would see this coming in handy is if you have some sort of setup and Heavy Red Fireball doesn't start up fast enough, or if you're up against, again, Guile, and you have to punch through his sonic breaks. EX Red Fireball is a hell of a way to do it. It can absorb 4 projectile hits. Alright, so another reason you might want to use this Red Fireball as opposed to the normal Fireball is due to the fact that a lot of times with Shotos, you'll find yourself doing something like walking forward, pressing a button in a Fireball, and then getting Shoryuken instead. And this is the bane of every player. It doesn't matter what level you're at, this is going to happen to you. And so one way you can sort of sidestep that issue with Akuma is to, instead of opting for the normal Fireballs, opt for the Red Fireballs. And you can do that after walking forward, no problem, without any risk of getting an accidental DP. And of course, these red fireballs are pretty minus on block, comparable to the normal fireballs. So a lot of times what you'll want to do is just walk forward, press the button into EX fireball, and then continue to pressure, because EX red fireball is actually insanely plus on block. Alright, let's quickly continue down the Shoto checklist, and next let's talk about Akuma's Shoryuken, or his Go Shoryuken. Now this is Akuma's DP, and similar to the rest of his moves, all three versions serve pretty different purposes. The light version does one hit, 100 damage, 150 stun, just one very powerful hit, similar to Ryu's Shoryukens, and the medium and the heavy are more akin to Ken's. The medium does 2 hits, doing slightly more damage in the totaling the same amount of stun. And the heavy version does slightly more damage than the medium, and it does the same amount of stun. And so, when do you want to use which ones of these DPs, basically? So naturally, the heavy Shoryuken makes for a damn good combo finisher. And then, due to the fact that this light Shoryuken does one meaty hit, one very powerful hit, it's more useful for combos into critical art, because it does more damage for less scaling. You don't waste any of the hits of the Shoryuken by canceling it, because none of the others are cancelable on the last hit. And then the medium and heavy still have their use for canceling as well. So if I were to push Ryu into the corner here, or let's just set this, you'll see that I can actually get a heavy DP into critical art. And then on the way down, Ryu's actually still in a juggle state. And that's because that's the benefit of canceling in the middle of the Shoryuken there. The last hit uses the juggle that it grants itself. And so if you cancel it in the middle of a Shoryuken like that, you keep that juggle state that should have otherwise been spent. And that's why you can do stuff like critical art, in Shoryuken into critical art, into Shoryuken, into V-trigger, into Shoryuken. For massive, massive damage. And then, naturally in the corner, the best one to use is the heavy one, because you have a bigger cancel window, and the 2 hits deal, like, aggregatively, the 2 hits deal more damage. However, the medium still has its uses, don't count it out. And that is actually for if you want to do something similar mid-screen. So mid-screen, if you were to try and do this same kind of cancel, it's very hard to actually reach with anything, because the opponent gets sent back flying too far. And that's where the good old medium Shoryuken comes in handy. We can actually cancel that medium Shoryuken and still have the opponent close enough to get a huge follow-up. And so basically that's how you want to think of these. The light Shoryuken is for canceling into critical art. The medium Shoryuken is for canceling into V-trigger mid-screen and getting a follow-up. And the heavy is for corner cancels. So the medium also works in the corner. A lot of people will just tell you to use the heavy because it's easier, and 9 times out of 10 the heavy will get you more damage. However, there's one very specific circumstance in which the medium will get you more damage overall due to the decrease in scaling, and that's if you're doing that triple Shoryuken combo that I was showing you earlier. So that combo does a little bit more damage if you use a medium for the first DP as opposed to heavies all around. It's really negligible though, so I wouldn't really pay too much attention to that. One more thing that I should mention about these Shoryuken cancels is that you can actually spend the juggle too early to make these corner cancels not work. So you see, like, what I'm doing is I'm comboing directly into the Shoryuken, and that's how these cancels are working. And that's how I'm getting the juggle. However, if I were to do something like add a light Tatsu in there, and still try to do that same cancel, I have spent that extra juggle state on that light Tatsu, and so I can no longer do that kind of stuff. And so that's another thing you want to keep in mind. If you want to do these fancy corner critical art cancels, you have to get in the habit of confirming directly into Shoryuken, instead of doing the light Tatsu confirm into Shoryuken. Alright, let's take a moment to talk about Akuma's EXTP. This move does quite a bit of damage. A lot of times if your opponent is crouching and all you can get is a jab and a medium Tatsu, you can follow that up with an EXTP to get a little bit of extra damage in there. But as far as optimal 1-bar combos are concerned, you have better options. That being said, this move is a very good reversal. It's fully invincible, so just like every other EXTP. And it has a lot of horizontal range, which means that this will actually interrupt a lot of frame traps that some other EXTPs in the game, like Ryu's or Karen's, wouldn't actually reach. And so a lot of characters like Fang, for instance, he loves to frame trap you at about this range, where you have very little moves that will actually reach. And so you can actually call out a lot of those frame traps with Akuma's EXTP, very similarly to Ken's. And it's sort of, this is important because it gives you a lot of extra timings where that you can blow up your opponent's frame traps. If you want to start baiting Shoryukens, you have to sort of get a feel for when your opponent starts using them and where EX Shoryuken would be a valid option. And for Akuma and Ken, EX Shoryuken is a valid option a lot more often than it is for some of the other characters. And so just keep that in mind if you decide to try and use this to interrupt frame traps. This move is also V-trigger cancelable on the first and second hit. And on block, this is still -5 or 6. And so I wouldn't really recommend just going for a raw neutral EXTP into V-trigger cancel. That's still punishable. You're not saving yourself. This is not an FADC. However, if you absolutely must use a wake-up EXTP or try to use it to interrupt frame traps, and you don't want yourself to get baited, this often comes in handy against, say, grapplers, where you have to take a guess anyways. And if you're gonna get baited, you might as well be -5 or -6 instead of getting giving the opponent a full crush counter punish. Then you can use that to save yourself a little bit of hassle. And then additionally, you can use this hard knockdown that you get when you V-trigger cancel this on hit. So just like most other V-trigger cancelable EXTPs, if you get the hit, still V-trigger cancel it, you get a completely hard knockdown. Now, some moves in this game, like throws, they cause like a semi-hard knockdown where your opponent can quick rise, but they cannot back rise. When you use EXTP into V-trigger, they cannot even quick rise. They just have to sit there on the ground and take whatever punishment is coming their ways, which makes this basically setup city for you. Alright, the setup that I like to use when I connect with this EXTP into V-trigger cancel is jump fireball, medium Tatsu, and then you can confirm once you get on the opposite side like that. And what makes this so powerful is the fact that you can control which side you land on, and depending on which side you opt for, the air fireball either hits in front or as a cross-up. And it's totally confirmable, it's totally safe on block, and it beats DPs. Although I haven't tested every DP, but they stand a reason that a cross-up like this would beat DPs. And so there's a trick to this, basically. Once you get that EXTP cancel into V-trigger on the first or second hit, what you want to do is jump fireball, but you want to do it at a mid-range. So that means not as low to the ground as possible, but not at the peak of your jump either. What you want to use is this mid-range, where you're still on the way up, and so you can tell whether or not you did it right by the fact that you're still rising after shooting that air fireball. However, not at the minimum height. And so there's 3 heights at which you can shoot this air fireball, pretty much that you have to consider. There's minimum height, which is that. There's a peak height, where you fall after you launch the air fireball, and then there's this mid height. You have to do it at that mid height. You can practice your air fireball timings you can get this pretty much 100% of the time. I'm actually a little out of practice on it, but I can guarantee that it's absolutely doable as long as you practice it out a little bit. And so basically what you do is you cancel that DP, immediately go for that mid-height air fireball, and that's stuff that time. And use a light fireball in order for it to have the right arc on it. And then as soon as you land, you want to go either into a light or medium Tatsu. Light will stay in front, medium will go behind. And I would advise just always opting for the medium until your opponent demonstrates that they can block the cross-up, and you train them to start blocking the other way when they see that setup, and then immediately switch it up with a light option. And that will allow you to confirm in front. As a matter of fact, the confirm's a little bit easier to do in front because of the fact that you're close enough to get that crouching medium punch, standing medium kick. And so you can actually just press crouching medium punch and still stay +3. At least +3. I'm not sure if that air fireball adds to that block advantage. And then, of course, the medium Tatsu lands behind. So, because of the fact that you're further away, you want to limit yourself to that standing medium kick, light Tatsu. And then the optimal combo to go for there is standing medium kick, light Tatsu, go Hado, go Shoryu. Although, when you're in front, you can choose between that crouching medium punch, standing medium kick, light Tatsu, go Hado, go Shoryu. Or you can do the meterless combo of just V-skill kick into demon flip. So you've got more room for creativity and more damage output when you use that when you use the front version, but of course the cross-up version is the entire reason that you're using it to begin with. Alright, let's take a moment to talk about Tatsus. So, Akuma has got, well, every Shoto has a Tatsu, and Akuma has got 3 very different ones. 4 if you include the EX Tatsu. And of course, the Air Tatsu. So, Akuma's Light Tatsu. So his Light Tatsu and his Medium Tatsu serve pretty similar purposes, although, you have to really keep in mind what the differences between these 2 Tatsus are. Contrary to what you would think, unlike Ken, who is the opposite of this, Akuma's medium Tatsu comes out much faster than his light Tatsu. His medium Tatsu starts up in 4 frames, and his light Tatsu starts up in 11 frames, even though it looks a lot faster than that. And so that's something you have to keep in mind. If you're going to use one of these Tatsus in neutral, you might want to rethink it if you're using light. Another difference is that the light Tatsu whiffs crouching opponents, whereas the medium Tatsu will connect against crouching opponents. And this normally isn't a problem because of the fact that a lot of Akuma's normals have built-in restand properties, like his standing medium kick and his crouching heavy kick. They'll just auto-restand the opponent. And also in combos, the difference in startup won't really matter because pretty much all of the normals that you'll be using to combo cancel into these Tatsus. And so the startup only really comes into play in neutral. And another reason that it's important that medium Tatsu has such fast startup is because of the fact that, similar to Ryu's heavy Tatsu, this medium Tatsu is almost entirely projectile vulnerable. And unlike Ryu's heavy Tatsu, this can be used perfectly adequately as a reactionary tool. You don't need a read in order to pass through and punish fireballs with this. You just need to have good reactions. And a lot of people overlook this because they'll think, oh yeah, Tatsu that goes through fireballs, Ryu has one of those, but the startup is too long for it to actually be useful. That is absolutely not the case for Akuma. The startup on this is so fast that I would actually advise you, if you go up against a zoner, to get within this medium Tatsu range and use this as a reactionary tool versus fireballs. Even against characters with faster fireballs, like Guile, you'll find that this is an extremely powerful tool. And as you've seen here, you can even connect from this far. And turn that Tatsu into some damage. I mentioned earlier how this light Tatsu, you need to restand in order for it to connect. And so you might be asking yourself, okay, if I need the opponent to be standing for light Tatsu, why not just always use medium Tatsu in combos? Well, the reason for that is that light Tatsu actually makes for a better combo tool. You can oftentimes get a lot better meterless damage with light Tatsu than you can with medium Tatsu. So as you see, medium Tatsu into a heavy Shoryuken, you only get one of those hits. And light Tatsu doesn't even connect. And so, almost all the time, you're going to want to opt for light Tatsu for that extra meterless damage. It is possible to do medium Tatsu into EX Shoryuken, but if you're going to spend the bar, you might as well do light Tatsu into EX Demon Flip, which gets you more damage for that same one bar. And so, basically, you only ever use medium Tatsu in combos when you have to, when you have no other choice. Like if you have a jab confirm and your opponent is crouching, then you have to opt for something like this, because it's literally all you can get. But whenever you can, if you want to maximize damage, I recommend going for that jab into light Tatsu. Alright, one more thing I should mention about this medium Tatsu is that I know a lot of Ken players have this problem with when it comes to light Tatsu and Shoryuken. It's hard to know with Ken when exactly you're close enough in order to get that full combo and when it'll whip. Luckily with Akuma, there's a nice, easy to remember rule of thumb for when you can combo out of Akuma's medium Tatsu. Well, light Tatsu always combos. Doesn't matter how far you are, if you get the hit, bam, you got the combo. Medium Tatsu, on the other hand, if you are at point blank or close to point blank, then you'll get all 3 hits. And that pretty much always combos. When you are at this sort of mid-range, you'll get 2 hits. And that will never combo. If you only get 2 hits with medium Tatsu, don't even try. Just let the opponent drop and go for the medium. However, there's also this weird third range from very far back where you only get 1 hit. And for whatever reason, when you only get 1 hit, bam, you can always combo. And so that's something you want to keep in mind when using Akuma's medium Tatsu, especially in neutral. You want to keep in mind that there's this dead zone where you can't get a combo. And you want to count the hits that you connect with. If it's 3, you're good. If it's 2, let him drop. If it's 1, you're still good. And so yeah, you want to get in the habit of counting those hits. You can also gauge it by the distance, but that's a little bit trickier, just because the distance for the third hit is so far that it's hard to accurately know, okay, how many hits am I going to connect with? Your opponent could very well walk forward or back in that meantime. So it's easier to just count the hits. Alright, next let's talk about Akuma's heavy Tatsu really quickly. So, Akuma's heavy Tatsu looks a lot like Goken's Tatsus from Street Fighter 4 in that they have this weird 45-degree angle on them. It goes straight up. Now this is not intended to be a neutral tool. It doesn't even work all that well as an anti-air. At least Akuma has way better ones. What this is intended to be used for is a combo finisher. And while it doesn't give the best Oki or do the most damage, it is optimal stun. And so if you're ever playing for a stun, that light Tatsu and a heavy Tatsu combo is absolutely the optimal way to go. And that's really the only huge utility for heavy Tatsu. There's also Akuma's air Tatsus. They work kind of similarly to Ryu's. They changed his jump arc a little bit, and they changed the size of his hitbox a little bit. And so a lot of times if you want to air-to-air, this is a good option since it causes a knockdown. Other than that, there's not really much to say about his jump Tatsus. Just because of the fact that you can't really combo out of them like you can with Ken's. Makes for a good tool every now and again, but it's not really something you can depend on, especially since Akuma has way better airborne options. Okay, and then finally we have EX Tatsu. Now this is a strange beast. EX Tatsu, if you use it on the ground, not that impressive. It does 120 damage, 150 stun, which is actually less stun than heavy Tatsu does. And so why would you ever use this, you ask? Well, the thing about the heavy Tatsu, I mean the EX Tatsu, is that it actually does way more damage if you connect with it in the air. So let's see if I can demonstrate this. It's a little bit tricky to time, but there we go. If you get it just right in the air, you'll notice that it actually did way more damage and stun that time, 162.50. And the reason that it does more damage in the air is because it's actually the airborne version of EX Tatsu. I mean, you can use it as an air-to-air, but it's intended to be used out of EX Demon Flip, which I'll talk more about in a second. But that makes for one of Akuma's most... It only costs 1 bar to do that whole sequence, and that makes for one of Akuma's most damaging 1-bar combos. Alright, now we've talked about our fireballs, tatsus, and shoryus. Let's go into Akuma's original stuff. So, next up on our list of special moves is the Hyaki, also known as Demon Flip. Now this move, it's very similar to Kami's Hooligan combo, although it has some interesting variants to it. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and preface this by saying that Akuma's Demon Flip, if used in neutral, is very much a gimmick. You lose when you fail to anti-air this. And this is one of the situations where you can freely anti-air Akuma without having to worry too much about that air fireball risk. And that's because if Akuma wants to shoot an air fireball out of Demon Flip, he has to spend a bar. Either to use the EX fireball or on the way up with the EX Demon Flip. So you don't really have to fear that too much. If you see him take the skies with that Demon Flip, the first instinct you should have is to anti-air him. Whatever will work. That being said, this move does have a lot of practicality. It's not perfect, but it does work very well for catching your opponent off guard and maintaining pressure. But let's quickly go into the options that you have as the Akuma player out of this. And so just like Kami's Hooligan combo, you have this throw option. And just like Kami's Hooligan combo, it whiffs crouching opponents, and so you can just crouch to avoid that. Of course, that is a trap because Akuma has options that do hit as an overhead that will catch you if you try to crouch Demon Flip every single time. Unlike Kami's Hooligan combo, this Hyaki into grab does not work as an air grab, so neutral jumping this actually does work. You cannot get caught in the sky with that Demon Flip into grab. So that Demon Flip into grab is very much a gimmick. You can crouch it, you can jump it, so long as you're not just standing blocking, it will not catch you. The other options are if you just do Demon Flip and let it go, you'll go into the slide, and that is safe on block. Once again, all these options are safe on block. Akuma has nothing punishable that he can physically do out of that Demon Flip. And again, just like the Hooligan combo, that does auto-correct when you land behind the opponent. And so that's actually a pretty neat gimmick that you can use if you Demon Flip behind somebody and then go for that low. Very effective way to catch your opponent off guard. And then you've also got the Demon Flip and a dive kick. Now this dive kick is pretty much equivalent to his normal command dive kick, except for the fact that because you don't have to do it at the peak of his jump, you can connect with it much lower, but the startup is much higher. You see he has to do that whole startup animation in order to get this Demon Flip into to dive kick. And honestly, I mean, a dive kick is a dive kick, but when you're playing as Akuma, these dive kicks don't really have all that much practicality. It's kind of a newbie trap to depend on these dive kicks. I guess after, you know, Street Fighter 4 and how everybody was up in arms about how dive kicks were OP, they put these dive kicks in the game, but made them very, very, basically nerfed them very, very hard. And so now Akuma no longer has like the same kinds of Demon Flip into dive kick cross-up setups that he used to have in Street Fighter 4 that made him super powerful. I should say that made Takedo and Infiltration super powerful. So that option, it's good to know that that option's there, but quite frankly Akuma has better ways of getting in. Much better ways. And one of those is the Demon Flip into Punch. And so this is sort of like a little volleyball spike that that Akuma's always had out of his Demon Flip. However, it is very powerful in Street Fighter V. It is ludicrously powerful. Not only does it cause a spike when it connects and give you a perfect meaty setup. Doesn't matter how your opponent rises, you always get a meaty after this Demon Flip and a spike. But it is immensely plus on block. Yeah, you can just do this and then continue pressure with that crouching medium punch afterwards, and it is a very solid frame trap. And so a lot of times what you'll see is Akuma players canceling into that Demon Flip and then continuing pressure after the punch. Matter of fact, I would go ahead and say that it is 100% viable to use Demon Flip exclusively for this punch option and never ever bother with the other options. That's how good this Demon Flip and a punch is. As a matter of fact, that's how I play Akuma. Whenever I do Demon Flip, you can always expect the punch to come out because there's nothing you can do that would stop the punch that wouldn't also stop the other options. This is sort of the non-gimmick. If all of the other finishers out of the Demon Flip, like the sweep, the dive kick, and the throw, are considered gimmicks, then this is the least gimmicky option that you can choose to execute out of that Demon Flip. It's just very fundamentally powerful. So yeah, that's sort of one of those things that you want to keep in mind when you use this Demon Flip. That whether you connect with this spike or your opponent blocks it, you still come out on top. The only way to beat that Demon Flip in a punch is if you are anti-aired on the way up or down. And then, of course, you can occasionally mix in the random EX Fireball to catch your opponent off guard and try to flip those anti-airs. I should also mention that when you use this Demon Flip, of course, the button you use, light, medium, or heavy, determines how far you go. Light hardly travels any distance at all. This is good for Blockstrings when you're in the opponent's face. Medium travels normal distance, like kind of the distance that you would expect from a Demon Flip. And then heavy is almost full screen. It's not quite full screen, actually. It's just, this is the furthest that you can reach with Demon Flip. You can no longer do EX shenanigans and connect with the Demon Flip from full screen, but this is the furthest you can go with it. Out of all of these, the versions that I would consider to be the most practical would be for Blockstrings, the light version, to maintain pressure, and for combos, the heavy version, because that gives the best Oki. That gives you the best media setup afterwards. The one place that you want to keep this in mind is if you ever want to do this combo in the corner for some reason, although there are better combos to perform in the corner, if you use the heavy version, you'll actually end up landing on the opposite side versus a lot of characters. And so, while this can be used to sort of trick your opponent or catch them off guard, because that side switch is a little bit unexpected, a lot of times you'll just end up cornering yourself by accident, and they'll pick up on that. And so if you want to stay on the same side in the corner, I recommend using the light version of the Demon Flip. And then you'll stay on the same side. Alright, and then next we have EX Demon Flip. So the thing about EX Demon Flip is that it does hits going up. And it also allows you to cancel into any of Akuma's air EX moves, but it doesn't cost meter when you do so. And so basically you can use EX Fireball, EX Tatsu out of this EX Demon Flip for no extra meter. That's just part of the EX Demon Flip. And so that makes it pretty powerful as a combo finishing tool. Because you can get these very powerful combos for just one bar. However, unlike Akuma in Street Fighter 4, that EX Demon Flip no longer auto-targets the opponent. Matter of fact, it doesn't travel that far at all. It travels about the same distance as a medium Demon Flip. And so using EX Demon Flip in neutral is not really that great. There's no real benefit to doing this, as opposed to just doing a normal Demon Flip. I mean, you do get the 3 EX, but if you're not getting the hits on the way up, there's no point to use this, because you can just spend the bar after the fact anyways. You can spend it on the fly. And so I feel like there's more versatility in neutral in using the normal Demon Flips than trying to go for some EX shenanigans. Alright, now I'm going to be talking about Akuma's teleport, and I want to go over this from the perspective of the other player. I don't want to go over this from the perspective of the Akuma player, because I feel like it's from this third-person perspective that you really start to get an appreciation for the utility of this move and its shortcomings. So first, let's talk about the properties on this teleport. So it is fully strike invulnerable from frame 1, which means that you can sort of use this as a poverty V reversal, or as a reversal on wake up to evade meaties. However, it's important to note that while it is strike invulnerable, it is not throw invulnerable at any point during its animation. And so this loses 100% of the time to meaty throws or tick throws, which makes it rather easy to bait if you're looking for it. However, that's not to say that this move is useless. It has 50 frames during which it is strike invulnerable when it's traveling, and then after that it's got another 11 frames of vulnerability, during which you can chase it down and punish it. And because of that long animation, it's pretty easy to react to, and if your character is fast enough, you can chase it down and punish it. Of course, this varies from matchup to matchup, but a lot of faster characters like Karen, like Balrog, like Cammy, will have no problems chasing this down and punishing it, if they know to do that. Let's also talk about the input for this move. So it is a Dragon Punch motion, which is forward, down, down, forward, and then all 3 kicks. And that all 3 kicks there is very important, because guess what also requires all 3 kicks? Akuma's V reversal is forward in all 3 kicks. And so we end up with this weird impasse. We have a move that's very powerful to use in guard recovery situations, but if we have any bit of V gauge stocked and we try to perform a guard recovery forwards teleport, it doesn't matter how clean our inputs are, we're going to get a V reversal. Now, if you notice, my inputs were perfectly clean there. I didn't input forward. I inputted down forward and all 3 kicks, and I still got that V reversal. And it's because of this property of Akuma's teleport and his V reversal that it's actually impossible to do this when you have a stock of V gauge. You're always going to use that V reversal instead of the teleport, which means that you can only do a forwards teleport when you have no V gauge, on a guard recovery at least. And so, because of this, you, as the non-Akuma player, if you know this, then you can know, okay, this Akuma player has some V gauge, therefore if he's going to teleport, he can only do it backwards, which makes it very easy to chase down. If you see that startup for the teleport, you know which way he's going, and you can immediately chase that down. That being said, what if Akuma doesn't have V gauge? What if he's empty? Then all of a sudden, you end up with this interesting little situation where Akuma is going to guard recovery teleport, but you don't know which way he's going to go. So how do you chase that down? So there are ways of beating both options, like tick throws, but you need a pretty strong tick throw. Rather, you need to be committed to that tick throw if you want to actually chase this down. If you are going for a frame trap, and he does this, you can't actually throw in time if he teleports backwards, but you can if he teleports forwards. That being said, there are other situations in which it doesn't matter which way he's going, like when he's in the corner. You can pretty much always... Well, let's go ahead and put him in the corner again. When he's in the corner, you can pretty much always throw and always catch him because it doesn't really matter which way he's going. He's not going to move when he moves backwards. There is a timing there where you can walk forward and throw, and you'll catch him no matter what he does. You'll either forward throw him moving back, or you'll back throw him moving forward. If that makes any sense at all. And you see, as soon as he got that V reversal, bam, it comes out instead of the forward teleport. And so, in most situations, you know that an Akuma player is going to teleport one way or the other. And you know that you have a definitive option for beating it. So, again, in the corner, doesn't matter what teleport he does, you can beat it by walking up and throwing. And then mid-screen, if he has any V-gauge whatsoever, you know that he's always going to teleport backwards because he physically can't input the forward teleport, at least not fast enough in guard recovery. He has to delay it. And so you do end up with all that in mind, you do end up with a real mix-up in the case that Akuma is mid-screen and he has no V-gauge. In this situation, he has a real situation in which he makes you guess as to which way he's going to teleport. If I perform a frame trap here mid-screen, I can catch him if he goes behind me, but if he teleports backwards, I have to chase him down and I have to commit to that. And so I have two options here. I can either try to anticipate the back throw and throw it, or chase it down by moving backwards, or I can anticipate the backwards teleport and try to chase that down. But if I guess wrong, all of a sudden, bam, he's at full screen and he's out. And so he's got this sort of 50-50 ghetto escape tactic that he can only use under very specific conditions. And you know what these conditions feel exactly? The beginning of the round. This situation is pretty much only ever going to happen at the very beginning of the round, when you start mid-screen and Akuma starts with no V-gauge. And so this is an important thing to know as somebody playing against Akuma, that at the beginning of every round, he's got this very real escape option of left versus right teleport. And as soon as he builds that first stock of V-gauge, that immediately goes away until he spends it. And then he also doesn't have that option in the corner. And so this is something that's very important to know, not only as the defender, but especially as the Akuma player. If you are going to use reversal teleports, you have to know that this is the only time that you get a real possibility of escaping against somebody who knows what they're doing. Against somebody who knows this matchup, if you try to reversal teleport with one V-gauge stocked, they'll know how to chase you down, because they'll know that you can't physically teleport behind them. Similarly in the corner, if you try to teleport out versus a player who knows the matchup, they'll know that they can just walk up and throw you. And so this is really the only situation where you can freely try to teleport out, so long as you mix up between teleporting forwards and backwards. And I'd recommend starting with backwards, and then when the opponent starts to chase you down and catch on to that, then you mix it up by teleporting forwards. A lot of the Akuma players will just teleport blindly, and then that's a newbie trap that you can fall into. If you don't know the nuances of this teleport, you're going to start getting read like a book. What you have to know is how to get in your opponent's head. Train them to learn to start punishing and chasing down that teleport one way, and then mix it up on you. Alright, next I want to talk about Akuma's V skill. And I'm sort of grouping this in with Akuma special moves because you'll use this in a lot of the same situations that you would normally use some of Akuma special moves. In that you wouldn't really use this like a normal and neutral, you would use this as a combo tool. So now the first thing I want to address is that while a lot of people are going to call Akuma's V skill a parry, it's not a parry. It's just one hit of armor. That's all it is. And when you use standing V skill, it's upper body armor, and when you use crouching V skill, it's lower body armor. And this has nothing to do with highs versus lows. What this has to do with is physical hurt boxes. When you use standing V skill, his upper half of his hurt box is armored, and when you use crouching V skill, the lower half of his hurt box is armored. And so it's really hard to predict what's going to trigger that armor or what's just going to go under. But generally speaking, most lows are going to go underneath that standing armor. and a lot of crouching jabs will hit somewhere in between. Crouching punches like Chun-Li's or Karen's that hit like the toes are going to 100% go under this. And so this is basically not very reliable to use for the armor properties. It's just sort of an added bonus. The reason why this V-skill is important is because of the two follow-ups. You have the V-skill punch, the V-skill palm rather, and what this does is it causes a knockdown with a lot of pushback that you often can't get immediate off of unless you're in the corner already. And then you've got the V-skill kick. Now that one's the moneymaker. This V-skill kick is, I would actually say that this is Akuma's optimal combo tool. So a lot of situations where I said that you could get optimal damage, or get better combos using Akuma's light Tatsu, as opposed to his medium Tatsu, I'm going to go ahead and one-up that and say that most of those combos can actually be further optimized by going for, instead of a light Tatsu, a V-skill kick. However, I'm also going to preface this by saying that Akuma's V-skill into kick, because of the execution barrier that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is one of those things that you only want to start using once you familiarize yourself with Akuma and grinded out the execution. And so there's a lot of things that you'll see Akuma players do with this V-skill kick. If you want optimal damage, you end up with a combo that looks something like this. You see a lot of Akuma players doing that. And surely enough, that's optimal damage. However, that particular combo, the V-skill kick and a light Tatsu into heavy Shoryu, it causes a side switch. And side switches suck in a game where corner positioning is so important. And with a character where, like Akuma, where corner positioning is so important to you as the offensive player, you don't want to be side switching every single time you land a combo like that, especially once you're in the corner. And so the way to optimize that a little bit further is, instead of doing the light Tatsu, you just do the V-skill kick, and then you walk forward a tiny bit, a micro walk, and then you connect with the Shoryu. And if you do this right, you'll connect with all three hits of that Shoryu. And it's the same combo, it's just a little bit harder to do, further harder to do than the side switch version. But if you want to play Akuma optimally, do optimal damage, I recommend you learn this. And then, if you want to further optimize your play, the combo that I would recommend you always go for mid-screen is the V-skill kick into Demon Flip and a punch. The reason why that's so important is because you always get a meaty off of that combo. It doesn't matter what your positioning is. So you do that, you follow it up with a dash, and then you sort of have to react. I mean, there may be setups, but I'm not a setup-based player when it comes to meaties. I just manually time them every time. So you dash forward, and then you just hold forward and react to what kind of recovery your opponent uses. And this is something I'd 100% recommend you grind out in the lab, because it's so fundamentally important to being a solid Akuma player. Akuma's the kind of character where once you get in, everything is in your favor. You can maintain that pressure endlessly and force your opponent to have to figure out how to stop it. And so I 100% recommend that you learn to do this V-skill into Demon Flip Punch if you want to play at a high level with Akuma. Because literally every other combo that he has in mid-screen, you won't get a meaty. At least not a very good one, off of certain quick rises or back rises. And then in the corner is where you should start considering the optimal stuff. Like the V-skill into Shoryuken. Or, of course, light Tatsu into heavy Tatsu. Because when you're in the corner, it doesn't matter. You'll always get a meaty regardless. And so that's what I meant earlier when I said that Akuma can be played at a very basic level. But when you actually want to master him, there's all of a sudden all this nuance to his combo potential that you have to keep in mind. Now, in addition to that V-skill kick and punch, there's also some cool stuff that you can do with this parry involving Akuma's critical arts. But I'll get more into that later. Alright, so next let's take a moment to talk about Akuma's critical art, Sekyakuretsuha, also known as Ground Pound. This move is making its return from Street Fighter 3, and this move has a lot of active frames and a lot of invincibility. It's got 11 frames of invincibility, and then it's got, what, almost 30 frames of 30 active frames there. So there are a lot of situations where if you use this as a reversal instead of EXDP, what would normally evade the EXDP would get hit by this. So if your opponent is trying to neutral jump your EXDP, this will probably catch them. And yeah, just there are a lot of situations where this could be a little bit tricky because of how much invincibility it has and how long it stays on the screen. I pretty much already mentioned the combo potential for this. You've got Light Tatsu, Light Shoryuken into critical art, which is optimal damage mid-screen. And then you've got medium or heavy Shoryuken into critical art, into heavy Shoryuken, which is your optimal damage. So that's about all there really is to say about Akuma's ground pound critical art. He does have another critical art in the Raging Demon, which you can access with V-trigger. Input for that is just 2 jabs, forward, standing light kick, standing heavy punch. There's a lot of speculation about like which one of these inputs you can press at the same time and still get the input. But I mean, in all the situations where you're going to use it, you're going to need some sort of setup in order to actually mask that start. Because while this does start up instantly, and if you are at point blank range from your opponent when you do it, they're not going to be able to jump it after the super flash. Because of the fact that the startup involves 4 normals rather, you're never going to be able to just input this fast enough for that to be initiate at point blank range. So you're going to have to mask this behind normals or specials in order to actually set this up properly. And so I'll talk about that more in depth when I talk about Akuma's V-trigger, because there's a lot to say there. Alright, so we've gone over all of Akuma's specials and one of his critical arts. Let's go ahead and jump to his normals now. And this is where a lot of people struggle when they're picking up Akuma. At first glance, people like to declare that his normals are terrible, he has stubby range, whatever that means, and his neutral game sucks because of it. While Akuma's normals, none of them have ridiculous range, they absolutely do not suck. Akuma is blessed with some of the best normals in the game. It's just a matter of knowing how to use them effectively. He doesn't have anything like Urian's forward heavy punch that can hit from across the screen and then confirm into massive damage. However, he does have some amazing normals that are really good at wave punishing and counter poking. And he can convert a lot of these normals into either really good pressure or really good damage. And so the first thing I'm going to start with is one of his best normals, his standing light punch. This move has 3 frame startup, it's +2 on block, and in addition to that, it's cancelable to all of his specials. Which means that Akuma can turn this standing jab into some ridiculous damage. So yeah, Akuma can get pretty much, he has no problem getting 200 damage off of the standing jab. And you might think 200 damage is not that much considering how much damage he can normally do, but for a standing jab confirm, that's actually a lot. He can even confirm the standing jab to his critical art. In addition to that, he can also confirm this standing jab into his standing medium kick on counter hit. So this makes for an effective meaty tool if you want to meaty with standing jab. And the reason why you'd want to meaty with a jab would be to, say, bait V reversals or to bait Urian's wake up EX headbutt. And so for those situations, standing jab into standing medium kick makes for a very effective counter hit confirm. Additionally, you can use this to catch your opponent if they are using an extended frame trap. Like, say, a lot of players like to, if they have a good plus crouching medium punch, walk forward, crouching medium punch, walk forward, crouching medium punch. You'll see this a lot in higher level play. A lot of people will just like to catch you off guard, sort of try to bait a throw out of you or something. And so a lot of times you can interrupt those with standing jab or light Tatsu. Additionally, if your opponent dashes forward on you, like a lot of M Bison players will like to stand at this range and then dash forward and throw you. So what you can do is you can react to that dash with a jab and a Tatsu. And so this is a super effective tool, just in neutral. You'd also be surprised as to how many buttons this standing jab actually stuffs. And it works surprisingly well as an anti-air as well. Not as good as Fangs or Nakali's, for instance, but as far as anti-air jabs go in Season 2, this is one of the better ones. That being said, Akuma has way better options in terms of anti-airing, so you shouldn't find very many situations where you need to anti-air jab, but it's good to know this exists as an option. Next up, we've got Crouching Light Punch. This is also cancelable. However, it has 4 frames to start up, so it's a little bit less useful than his standing jab. There's not really much to say about his crouching jab. There aren't very many situations in which you would want to use this as opposed to standing jab. They both have pretty much the same range, so there's not much difference there. It's just the fact that this starts up faster, which makes it a little bit more useful. We have standing light kick. Again, not much to say here. This works just like pretty much every other standing light kick in the game. It is in fact cancelable, but again, 4 frame startup means that in a lot of situations you would much rather use the standing jab. However, this standing light kick is only +1 on block, and so there aren't really very many situations in which you want to use this. One benefit of standing light kick that you cannot get with standing jab or crouching jab is the fact that you can actually use negative edge to get a sort of some people call this an option select, some people call this an empty cancel. But what you can do is you can press standing light kick, hold it, and put a quarter circle back, and then let go of standing light kick in order to get that standing light kick in a Tatsu. And if you do this correctly, if you do it fast enough, like you can see me inputting standing light kick, inputting the quarter circle back, and then letting go of standing light kick. And if you do it fast enough, just like that, it won't come out on whiff, because you're inputting that light Tatsu too fast for it to actually come out without canceling. And so if you manage to connect on hit with that, bam, there it is, standing light kick and a Tatsu. And so that makes it for a very powerful tool that you can use with pretty much anybody else who has a light Tatsu that works like this, except for the fact that Akuma's goes into a lot of damage very easily. And so a lot of times you'll want to stand at about this range, just out of the range of his standing light kick, or just out of the range of in a normal that you want to try and stuff, and you'll buffer that quarter circle back afterwards, and then let go of standing light kick. You'll use that negative edge buffer. And then if your opponent walks into this range, or dashes into this range, or puts out a normal within range of your standing light kick, then you'll end up getting this cancel. And so this is another neutral tool that, while a lot of other characters have it, it's much more powerful in Akuma's hands because of the fact that you can convert that into so much damage so easily. And so this is something I'd recommend everybody learn, actually. It's just so ridiculously powerful. You just put out that standing light kick without having to worry about your light Tatsu getting punished. Very easy to master, very advanced stuff. Another cool thing about the standing light kick is that it has so little pushback that you are actually still within throw range after your opponent blocks one of these. Which means that if you want to start meeting with standing light kick, you can train your opponent to tech the throw or get thrown. And once you train your opponent to start teching or GPing after this, you can start shimmying pretty effectively. And so what I like to do is standing light kick, walk back a little bit, and then standing medium kick. Or if you even want, you can walk back a lot and standing heavy punch. Alright, let's talk about Akuma's crouching light kick. This is a very underrated normal. So I don't know what Capcom's recent fascination is with giving people crouching, lows that are plus on block, but that this crouching light kick, sure enough, is +1 for whatever reason. And so for starters, just like most other crouching light kicks, while this is not cancelable, it does chain into Akuma's jabs. And so if you ever want a low confirm, you've got one in the form of crouching light kick, crouching light punch, light Tatsu. And you pretty much don't ever have to worry about that whole thing where light Tatsu whiffs crouching opponents, because if you're connecting with a low, you know your opponent's not crouching. Either that or they're not blocking. And so that's pretty much a gimme right there. And you can also exploit the fact that this is +1 on block by using it into standing jab or even standing light kick to form a frame trap. Now, because of the fact that this is actually chainable into Akuma's standing jab, if you want to turn that crouching light kick standing jab into a frame trap, you have to learn to manually delay it. And the input buffer is not going to help you here. You have to actually be frame perfect within 1 or 2 or maybe I think 3 frames. I'm not, math's off right now. But you have to learn to manually delay this in such a way that it will turn itself into a frame trap. And if you can master that, then all of a sudden you have access to this. You have a staggered frame trap that counter hit confirms off of a crouching light kick. And this is a super powerful tool for opening people up. And Akuma's one of those characters that you'll find yourself, if you ever manage to get in once, you'll find yourself having a very easy time of staying in. And so in addition to stuff like crouching medium punch, crouching heavy punch, demon flip, jab and a demon flip, you also have this option to consider in that crouching light kick standing jab. If you delay that standing jab by exactly 1 frame, you can get both the counter hit and the you can get both the frame trap and the combo on hit. Very tough to do. And you shouldn't really concern yourself, but just know that that's the optimal situation there when you get that that delay by exactly 1 frame. Alright, next up on the list of Akuma's normals is his standing medium punch. This is Akuma's poke button. A lot of people's pokes are standing medium kick. For Akuma, it's standing medium punch. There's honestly not a lot to say about this move. It has 7 frames of startup, which is actually really high for a medium normally, especially a medium punch. However, it is +3 on hit, +1 on block. And so that means that you can get stuff like that. Standing medium punch, standing light punch, light or medium Tatsu. And the fact that it's +1 on block means that it is far superior to most people's pokes. While it pales in comparison in terms of something like range to moves like Urian's forward medium punch, or Karen's standing medium kick, this is the best it gets when it comes to Akuma's range. It's even cancelable, which makes it a pretty effective neutral button. I wouldn't recommend overusing it because of the fact that while it is a pretty decent button, it doesn't have the range to make up for its utility. Does that make sense? Like, for what it does at the range that it works at, there are other buttons that are better for the job. For instance, for a little bit, if you were to walk a little bit closer, you'd all of a sudden be in range of moves like crouching medium punch. And so let's talk about this crouching medium punch. It's 6 frame startup, which is 1 frame faster than standing medium punch, and it is +5 on hit, which means that works. Crouching medium punch, standing medium kick. And it's also +3 on block, which is huge. +3 normals on block are something that not everybody in the cast has, and Akuma has 2 of these. And so that means that once your opponent blocks this crouching medium punch, they are going to have to eat a frame trap. So what you can do is crouching medium punch, standing medium kick, and that's a frame trap, but it's -2 on block, or you can just do 2 of these crouching medium punches. And that you can normally combo into L Tatsu. The only problem with the double crouching medium punch is that it doesn't cause the auto stand. So your opponent is crouching, you're not going to be able to get that double crouching medium punch Tatsu. But it's good to know that's an option, because if your opponent does block both hits, then it keeps you +3. At which point, you can do some nifty stuff to open up the opponent. Alright, we've also got Akuma's standing medium kick. Now this move is incredibly useful. It's only 5 frame normal, so it comes in super handy for punishes. And as we mentioned earlier, Akuma's got that problem whereby his light Tatsu will only connect on standing opponents. And so it really helps the standing medium kick causes a forced standing state. And so you don't ever have to worry about light Tatsu whiffing after connecting with the standing medium kick. It works fairly well as a just neutral tool. However, the range is not great on it. I mean, it's your typical 5 frame normal. Akuma's standing medium kick is what a lot of people's standing medium punches would be. So there's not really much to say outside of that. This move does combo from crouching medium punch or a crouching heavy punch, which makes those 2 very common bread and butters for Akuma. And you can often use this to combo out of an air fireball pretty easily. Either a light fireball at the peak of your jump, or a light fireball on the way down for your jump, or a heavy fireball from a little bit further away. Those both work. And of course, in addition to being able to cancel this into light Tatsu, it also cancels pretty well into V-skill kick. So that's another option that you have for putting combos together with Akuma. And then we've also got Akuma's crouching medium kick. Now, the range on this crouching medium kick is kind of pathetic. You can barely tell the difference between his crouching light kick and his crouching medium kick. It just basically looks like a slower crouching light kick. So while the range is certainly lacking, it is in fact cancelable, so you can combo out of this move. That doesn't quite work, unfortunately. You can't go crouching medium kick into V-skill kick, but you can do crouching medium kick into light Tatsu. Oh, and of course, classic crouching medium kick into fireball, which only combos when you're a little bit closer to the max range. This crouching medium kick is not too useful. If you really want to clip your opponent's legs, then you can use it to catch them off guard, but it's difficult to hit confirm, to say the least. And so I don't find myself using it that often. Next up, we've got standing heavy punch. Now this, on paper, it doesn't seem like a very great normal. It's -5 on block, but so long as you hit it out of range, you're going to find that a lot of characters have a very tough time actually punishing this. Because of the fact that not only does it have a lot of range, it has more range even than standing heavy punch. I mean standing medium punch. But it also causes all of that pushback. So good luck actually finding somebody who could punish this. In addition to that, it also causes a devastating crush counter, which you can even follow up with this target combo. And so this target combo is basically crush counter or not. It is standing heavy punch, standing heavy punch. And And what's so great about this target combo is that it always gives you an optimal meaty situation regardless of what recovery your opponent uses. And so another aspect of Akuma being a tough character to master, if you want to be able to master Akuma's neutral game, you have to learn to hit confirm this standing heavy punch. And so you're going to have three situations, basically. Either your opponent's going to guard it, your opponent is going to get hit by it, or it's going to crush counter, and you have to be able to follow up in both of those situations. So on block, do not follow up with the target combo because it is insanely punishable. On crush counter, you're always going to want to follow up, and on hit, you're also always going to want to follow up. And so this just makes for a very, very powerful tool. And the optimal ranges to use this are either just barely in range, at maximum possible range, or you want to use it just barely out of range. And this is where it's useful for counter poking, for catching your opponent's extended hurt boxes when they put out a button, and crush countering them. And so this is something I recommend that you practice in the lab. Just practice hit confirming this on random guard, random crush counter, and learn how to confirm just this standing heavy punch. One button confirms are often not very easy for a lot of people, but this move has so much hit stun and so much block stun, and it gives you such a huge window to follow up with that target combo that it's absolutely hit confirmable, even if you're not normally good at one button confirms. And then what you also want to do is master following up on that random recovery meaty situation that you have afterwards. So you want to learn no matter which recovery your opponent uses, you want to learn to chase that down and meaty. And so one good basically a neutral or a footsies practice session that you can have with Akuma is just to set your opponent to random guard, random counter, random recovery, and set them to wake up with parry, I think is what I have this set to. Yeah, there we go. And that will test your ability to convert this standing heavy punch into pressure. And basically, whenever you can get a meaty situation with Akuma, you want to take it. Because that's one of those situations where you can afford to stay on the offensive. And so, if you're defending against this move and you get caught by this double standing heavy punch crush counter, what I recommend you always try to go for is the back rise. Because while Akuma can still get a meaty off of that back rise from this, it's a lot more difficult, especially at far ranges. Alright, so you saw me using a little bit of crouching heavy punch. And this is a move that a lot of Akuma players are going to immediately gravitate towards for pretty much every situation. And while this is a great button, don't get me wrong, it is a heavy that is +3 on block, it crush counters on counter hit, and it causes a restand, and it's actually confirmable by itself. If you want to meaty with this button, this is the only button that you need. You do not actually need to hit confirm with any additional button, just because the hit stun on this is just so ridiculously high. And so it's a great button, but you should try to avoid falling into the newbie trap of trying to use this for everything. This is not Akuma's neutral button. This isn't the button that you just throw out and hope that you get a crush counter. This isn't Nakali's heavy anything. What I would say that this, I actually feel like Akuma's tools are so good that despite this button being so good in its properties, it sort of gets overrun by like the application of this button has like a sort of overlap with so many of his other buttons. Like in neutral, it doesn't have enough range to merit the amount of startup on it. And so a lot of the situations where you might think that this would be a good button, standing heavy punch is just way better. And then in terms of pressure, you've also got crouching medium punch, which is your other +3 button. And the difference between crouching heavy punch and crouching medium punch is that this crouching medium punch has less pushback on block. If you see what I'm talking about there. I'm way further back now than I would have been with just this crouching medium punch. And I mean, you can connect with a standing medium kick afterwards for either button, but pushback on block is a very, very important thing to consider with Akuma's offense. And let me quickly demonstrate why that is, because if you're very on point with hit confirming and you know what to do on block, you can continue to pressure an opponent for a very, very uncomfortably long time. Let's go ahead and put myself in the corner here. So I've set Ryu here to guard everything that I'm doing. And so all of that you saw just then, nothing there was, well, with the exception of this standing medium kick, which I canceled, nothing there was really minus on block. The demon flip punch is plus on block, and then I can frame trap that into the crouching medium punch, which is plus on block, which I can then frame trap into the standing medium kick, which is not plus on block, but I can cancel it to get rid of the recovery into a light demon flip, and then loop that same pressure. And then he has other strings that that you can mix in here as well, like crouching medium punch into forward heavy punch into jab. And so that's +3, +1, +2, and then I can even cancel that jab into another demon flip. And just keep on going like that until you just slowly drift out of range. And that's the only like downside to this offense, is that you do slowly drift out of range. And that's not to say that there's things that there's nothing you can do about that. If you can absolutely start to get a feel for when you're out of range, you can substitute in a medium demon flip instead of a light demon flip. And that has a lot more startup on it, but it'll keep you in range. Yeah, and so it's because of stuff like that that you have to be a little bit weary of depending too much on this crouching heavy punch, which knocks you so far back that you end up not being able to do those loops as effectively with it. That being said, this move does make for a very easy meaty. I'm not going to say it's his best meaty button, but it's his easiest meaty button for sure. Because of the reasons that I mentioned before, and so it's hit confirmable by itself, it's +3 on block, and then you can combo into a standing medium kick on hit and get that full combo. You can even do it on crush counter. Crush counter doesn't really make any difference in terms of the application. Still get the same combo and not really much else. It just does a little bit of extra damage and stun. But in terms of when we're talking about meaty situations, let's go ahead and set him to not block at all. It makes for a very easy meaty, because all you need is that one button, and then you immediately know, okay, did I connect or not? And then I believe this move is 3 active, which is that's a good amount of active frames for a meaty. And so Akuma does have other options for meatying. Like I mentioned earlier, standing jab if you want to bait V reversals and go for the counter hit confirm makes for a pretty good meaty. And also crouching medium punch. Now this has less hit stun than crouching heavy punch, so it's a lot harder to confirm by itself. It is confirmable by itself if you are really experienced at one button confirms, but it's a lot harder to do so. So it's a bit more advanced to go for meaties with this button as opposed to crouching heavy punch. And in terms of continuing pressure after that demon flip punch, I would absolutely recommend going for that crouching medium, that crouching medium punch instead of that crouching heavy punch. Just because of the fact that it has less startup. Alright, next let's talk about Akuma's heavy kicks. He's got a standing roundhouse. This is a bit of a weird button. It whiffs crouching opponents, just like Alex's Lariat or a few other normals in the game. That being said, it does cause a mighty hefty crush counter. And this is actually Akuma's optimal DP punish button. So if your opponent throws out a Shoryuken, you block it, then the optimal crush counter is going to be something along the lines of roundhouse, crouching, fierce punch, and then into that whole rigmarole. Let's see if I can get fully optimal. Oh. Oops, that's wrong. There we go, that's fully optimal crush counter punish. A little bit difficult to do, but the damage there is pretty high, 330 damage. And in Season 2, 330 damage for a crush counter is actually really high. Some other factors I should note, the standing heavy kick does have a standing heavy kick target combo that falls up from it. This is similar to the way that his standing heavy punch target combo works. Except, unlike the standing heavy punch target combo, which becomes less safe when you follow it up, the standing heavy kick target combo actually becomes more safe when you follow it up on block. Which is a little bit weird. This follow-up standing heavy kick is 0 on block. And I mean, Akuma's not a character that can do very much in that distance when he's 0, but that's just an interesting little tidbit to know. Also, this double standing heavy kick target combo is, it goes into some of Akuma's optimal damage, which is really, the practicality only comes there on, like, in things like stun combos, where you can reasonably get a jump in, like jump heavy kick, stand heavy kick, stand heavy kick. Let's turn off this counter hit. And get stuff like that. In all other situations, I would go ahead and say that that standing heavy kick target combo is not going to be very practical. Not really much else to say about this button. It has good range, but the fact that it whiffs crouching opponents makes it not super reliable in neutral. So I wouldn't depend on this too heavily. It does work fairly well for catching your opponent off guard. But just try not to rely on it too heavily. Use it with about the same frequency with which you would use, say, Guile's spinning back fist. We've also got sweep. Just like every other sweep in the game, causes a crush counter sweep on counter hits, which is not quick riseable or back recoverable. Hard knockdown. And this, while it is a faster sweep, it's one of the faster sweeps in the game, it has very terrible range, and it's incredibly punishable. It's actually so punishable that pretty much everybody in the cast, after blocking this sweep, can punish with something better than a counter sweep. And then, additionally, you have got crouching heavy kick V-trigger cancel. So this is one of the applications of everybody's sweep. You can always V-trigger cancel people's sweeps in order to make them safe on block. However, when you V-trigger cancel Akuma's sweep, not only does it become safe on block, it becomes extraordinarily plus on block. Like, I'm not even sure how I can physically demonstrate this, but just to sort of drive the point home, I can do crouching sweep, V-trigger cancel, fireball, and that is a tight block string. That's how insanely plus that crouch counter, that sweep V-trigger cancel is. And I mean, I'm not even sure what I can physically do. Maybe I can try V-skill palm to demonstrate this. No, that's not it. So as you can see, sweep V-trigger cancel into V-skill palm causes a frame trap. Which is ridiculous because the startup on V-skill palm is absurd. It's at 15 frames. And so that means that that sweep is probably plus, what, like 13 or 14 on block, which is nuts. So while the sweep itself is not that great, if you can V-trigger cancel it, you can manually time yourself some pretty nifty frame traps. And they have to be manually timed, unless you want a frame trap with that palm, which is unsafe on block. And then additionally, if you manage to get the crush counter and V-trigger cancel it, you can do some nifty cross-up stuff. Same way that it works with the EXDP cancel. except I don't think that normal jumping is going to actually reach in this situation. I think if you do a normal jump with a normal timing, the fireballs are going to go clear over his head. And so what you actually have to do in order to make this setup work is V-trigger, cancel, light demon flip, fireball, and then jump. And so that that version of the hard knockdown setup, it's a little bit trickier to see coming. I mean, it's a little bit easier to see coming, rather, because you take to the skies in order to cross up. But yeah, it's just good to know that that option exists and that V-trigger cancel sweep is a valid option for getting in, or for continuing pressure once you're already in. All right, that's all of the normal normals. Now let's talk about some of the command normals. So we have got, first and foremost, forward medium punch, Akuma's classic overhead. This overhead has quite a bit of range. Both of the hits are, in fact, real overheads, and so they will both hit crouching opponents. And if you're in V-trigger, it's important to know that you can actually buffer this. Let's go ahead and make a global crouch here. You can actually buffer a Raging Demon behind this move if your execution is on point. Oh, which mine is not. Oh. There we go. Gotta be very fast on the uptake there, but you can buffer a demon behind that. Important to know. Not, there are better buttons to buffer Raging Demon behind, but it's just good to know that that's one of them. And so you can make your opponent learn to fear this overhead more than they maybe should. It is neutral on hit. If you get a counter hit, it's only +2, so there's not really much you can do with it on hit. Unlike some of those characters that are blessed with comboable overheads. And it is -6 on block, which is apparently the new trend in Season 2, where nobody's allowed to have safe overheads except for the people that still have safe overheads. So yeah, this is highly punishable now. So I would actually recommend against overusing it. And if you're going to use it, try to space it to a point where it's a little bit harder to punish. Although -6 is pretty much punishable by everybody at every range. And then next up on the list, we've got forward heavy punch. Boy, oh boy, do I love this move. So the application of this is it's a pressure tool. You don't ever want to use this in neutral because it's basically like a really slow-winded short hop. But if you use this immediately after a button that's +3 on block, you'll sail over lows, and you'll also have the effect of you'll also have the added bonus of working something like a built-in shimmy. And that's pretty nifty, because if you can train the opponent to start throw baiting, or if you can train the opponent to start decking, then this is a cool way to start sailing over those throw attempts. However, it's important to note that this is not entirely throw invulnerable. While you're landing, there are actually some frames there while you're on the ground. You can be thrown. And of course, this is very easy to anti-air if you just press a button at the correct time. Like if I had Ryu set to delay his jab by a few frames there, he would be knocking me out of the sky. So it's not, by all means, not a foolproof tool, but it just works really well at catching your opponent off guard if they don't know what to do. I definitely recommend mixing this in with demon flips, especially after you can confirm a blocked crouching heavy punch. It's very, very, if you're meeting with crouching heavy punch and you can confirm that it was blocked, then a very powerful follow-up is that that forward heavy punch. And again, this is +1 on block, which means that you can go into a good, viable frame trap with standing light punch afterwards, and that'll even beat standing jabs. There we go. Or 3 frame jabs, rather. And if you connect with this move, you can combo in a standing light punch. The problem is you have to confirm, there's no restand here, so you have to confirm whether or not your opponent is crouching or standing when they got hit. And if they're crouching, you've got to settle for that medium kick Tatsu. And unfortunately, that's always going to do 2 hits for you. So 2 hits means no follow-up, as we discussed earlier. If you are godlike and can confirm that you got a counter hit, then you're actually +5, which is just enough to get this. So do keep an eye out for that. I mean, confirming counter hits in this game isn't the easiest thing, since there's no real audio cue unless you get a close counter. And so I don't expect anybody to really master this, but it's just a good thing to know. I mean, sometimes you just want to go for that, you might even want to just go for that standing medium kick as a guess. And it still causes a pretty decent ring trap, although not as tight as standing light punch. Alright, last but certainly not least on Akuma's list of grounded command normals is his back heavy punch. I love this button to death. I consider this to be the best anti-air in the game, as a matter of fact. At the very least for certain applications. Different anti-airs come in handy for different applications, but for most situations, Akuma's back heavy punch does the trick. And let me quickly demonstrate why. I'm going to go ahead and set Ryu to do various jump-ins here. So, what's so great about this this anti-air is that you can cancel it into any one of Akuma's specials. And of course, the number one that I recommend to follow it up with is heavy demon flip into demon flip punch. Because, as I mentioned earlier, this spikes the opponent and gives you a free meaty. And this is such a powerful anti-air. It doesn't matter what angle your opponent jumps at, you're always going to come out on top. And so, there are other things you can do. Like, a lot of people like to use red fireball, because you can do some fancy stuff with the V-trigger cancel. However, I really don't feel like that's worth the V-trigger cancel. I feel like you're better off just, unless you need that tiny bit of extra damage to close out a match or get a stun, I recommend just going for this. It's also easier to execute. It's easier to go from back heavy punch into half circle forward than it is to go from back heavy punch to half circle back. So this is actually one of those situations where the easier to execute option is more optimal in a lot of situations. There we go. Yeah, you absolutely need the damage to close out a round. Do something fancy like that to milk a good chunk of damage out of your anti-air. But for 9 times out of 10, I would recommend just going for that. Alright, next, so we've talked about all of Akuma's grounded normals. Let's talk about his air normals. And let's actually start with the special one here, and that is his dive kick. Now, the input for this is the same as it's been pretty much every Street Fighter iteration, and that is just down medium kick at the top of his jump arc. Or near the top of his jump arc. You don't have to be exactly at the top. There's a lot of wiggle room there. And this being a dive kick, the frame data varies pretty wildly, although it is generally speaking always pretty good. So you're always going to be plus on hit, no matter where you actually connect. So if you hit Ryu in the head with a dive kick, which I think is as bad as it can get, you're still going to be, like, what, +2 at worst on hit. However, on block, while you're still usually going to be relatively safe on block, it can go as bad as -4 there, as you see the jab actually punished. And it can go as good as +6 on block. And I think that was like +5 or something. There, that was +6. That was as low as it possibly goes, where you can just hit the calf of your opponent. The actual timing and spacing for connecting with this dive kick at optimal range is very, very difficult to actually accomplish, especially in a match where people move. Well, no, there is no but. It's just very difficult, and if your opponent knows what they're doing, they'll walk out of that range instead of just standing there like a good little boy while you take that eternity to get in. And so you can't really count on this dive kick as being a reliable way in, like they have been notoriously in other Street Fighter iterations. However, it's good to know that it's there. I always say that Akuma's Fireball works as a better dive kick than his dive kick. But while the Fireball does get you more reward on hit, it also is more dangerous. I mean, both of these options will get you anti-aired. As a matter of fact, dive kick is more prone to being anti-aired than the air fireball. But if you actually manage to get the connection, this dive kick is going to be a lot safer a lot of the time. Dive kick is also a cool way of changing your air momentum. It's a third way that Akuma has of changing his momentum in the air. He's got jump fireball. He's got jump EX fireball, which completely stalls him in the air. He's got jump Tatsu, which just moves him a little bit in his trajectory. And then finally he's got the dive kick. And all of that not counting the fact that he's got the demon flip and all that, the zany shenanigans he can do out of that. But that's a little bit different from normal jump. Alright, let's continue down the list of Akuma's air normals. And let's start talking about Akuma's jumping light punch. So, you would think there wouldn't be much to this jumping light punch. However, it's important to note that this actually works as an instant overhead. And for those of you who don't know what an instant overhead is, or what the application of this move would be, basically an instant overhead is a jumping normal that it is an overhead, and it connects with standing opponents only. And the reason why an overhead that connects with standing opponents only would ever be useful is because when anybody is waking up in this game, there is a very small window during which, even if they are holding down back, they in fact have a standing animation. And this is what makes these instant overheads useful. And so if you ever want to get a, if you're ever one touch away from death or stun, or if you ever want to blow away a large amount of white health on the opponent, neutral jump light punch at a perfect timing is the perfect way to do that, because even if they're holding down back, that instant overhead will clip them and is nigh on unreactable. Now, unlike some other characters like, say, Ibuki, who can find setups to combo out of their instant overhead, Akuma doesn't really have anything too substantial there. We can use that same V-trigger cancel hard knockdown setup earlier to get something going like that. It's actually set up a crouch. But aside from that extra fireball or two, there's not really much else that we can get from that situation. And so it's a little bit less useful of a setup. However, if all you need is one touch for a killer stun, then that makes it a lot more effective, or a lot more useful, I should say. So let's set counter hit to on right now, because as I mentioned earlier, we can do the same setup or a similar setup off of first counter sweep. Yeah, we can get 3 hits there for a good meaty 120 damage off of an instant overhead, which is not terrible. That's not terrible at all. Alright, let's quickly run down the rest of these jumping normals. So we've got jumping light kick, which looks pretty similar to Ryu's jumping light kick. Although, honestly, it's hard to know without looking at the hitboxes and testing it against various anti-airs whether it's as overpowered as Ryu's jumping light kick. Although I haven't heard any complaints about it. And so jumping light kick is this crossover, it's cross up light, and then jumping medium kick is this cross up medium. And this causes a bit more hit stun and block stun, and so you're gonna have a much easier time comboing out of that jumping medium kick. And so you can basically take your pick as to which you prefer. A lot of people prefer jumping lights, a lot of people prefer jumping mediums, and Akuma can take his pick between either. Or you can vary them up if you want to just throw your opponent off guard. This jumping light kick, you can get it to be +6, but you have to be very low to the ground in order to have that work. You're usually never going to have a problem doing jumping light kick into standing medium kick. And then obviously you'll have the easiest time with something like jumping light kick jab. Next up, we have jumping medium punch. This is your bog standard anti-air, or air-to-air rather. Not really anything special to say here. Pretty much everybody's jumping medium punch looks pretty similar in this game. As a matter of fact, if you want an air-to-air, then jumping heavy kick actually has a little bit more range and does a little bit more damage. The problem with jumping heavy kick is that it'll never hit a crouching opponent, and it's hard enough to even hit a standing opponent with this thing. It's got a very awkward forward hitbox. If you want to jump in with a heavy, jumping heavy punch is going to be your best bet. The only advantage to using jumping heavy kick over jumping heavy punch is that if you manage to connect with it on a standing opponent, say when you get a stun, it's much easier to do jumping heavy kick into standing heavy kick target combo than it is to do jumping heavy punch, because it's very easy to miss timings. So I mentioned that as far as air-to-airs are concerned, you've got jumping medium punch and jumping heavy kick, which are both usable. However, if you want an air-to-air, which is something that you're going to find yourself wanting more often than not with Akuma, you can blow both of those options out of the water just by doing an air Tatsu. Just because that knockdown is so much more advantageous than just getting this restand off of either one of these buttons. And the reason why you're going to find yourself wanting to air-to-air a lot with Akuma is because, as I mentioned earlier, this fireball, very effective way of getting in if you can mix up your options and know how to keep your opponent on their toes. So you jump in a few times. When your opponent learns to anti-air, then you start mixing in this air fireball, and that'll stuff their anti-airs. And the correct response to air fireball depends on the character, honestly. But if you want to beat air fireball clean, your only options are really going to be something that's projectile invulnerable and also anti-airs, like say Guile's Sonic Flash Kick and Zangief's Lariat, and that'll beat it clean and pretty much shut down your options in the air. Alternatively, you can use an EXDP, like reuse EXDP will work. As long as you time it right, it'll pass right through this this air fireball and knock Akuma out of the sky. However, if you're not blessed with any of those projectile invulnerable anti-airs and you don't want to spend meter or you don't want to spend meter on that EXDP, the other things that people can do are dash under the jump fireball, and when Akuma lands after throwing up one of those air fireballs, he is pretty whip punishable. And the way to beat that option is if somebody starts dashing under you, you can start, instead of doing a jump fireball, you can start jumping in with cross-up buttons and hoping to catch them when they try to dash under. Now, another option to deal with those air fireballs, if you are having trouble, or rather, if you're not blessed with one of those projectile invulnerable anti-airs and you don't want to spend the meter, is to just empty neutral jump. Empty neutral jump, surprisingly effective at punishing Akuma's air fireballs. If you're not confident in your ability to actually whip punish on the ground, then you can also just come down with the normal, and that works just as fine. However, the way for the Akuma player to deal with this neutral jump option, if they start to get a read on you, is to start opting for jump Tatsu. So there's a lot of mind games when it comes to playing around with these air fireballs and the correct responses. And so this is something you have to employ as the Akuma player. If you're not up against Guile or Zangief specifically, and your opponent isn't burning the meter every single time and knocking you out of the sky, then you get that sort of mix-up. What are they doing to anti-air me, and how do I beat it? What are they doing to deal with my air fireball, and what do I do to beat it? Are they dashing under? Then jump cross-up. Are they neutral jumping? Then either jump air-to-air with, say, medium punch or heavy kick, or air Tatsu. Alright, the time has finally come to talk about Akuma's V-Trigger. So this is one of the better V-Triggers in the game. It does a lot. It doesn't last for very long just because of the fact that whenever you use it, it depletes there. And so you get a certain number of specials depending on what you want to use it for. If you want to use it for air fireballs, you get, I think, 4 or 5? Yeah, if you use them right away, then you get 5, otherwise you only get 4. Yep. These air fireballs are different from your EX fireballs. As a matter of fact, while you're in V-Trigger, you're not allowed to use your bar on any of these moves that would normally be, on any of the moves that get affected. You can still use EX Tatsu because Tatsu doesn't actually get depleted by V-Trigger, and you can still use EX Demon Flip. However, you don't have to, because when you're in V-Trigger, you can use air fireballs without spending meter. And so let's quickly run down all the things that this V-Trigger does. Alright, so first off, it turns your fireballs into Go-Hados. And these are basically better versions of your normal fireballs. They work pretty similarly to EX fireballs. Except for the fact that they always knock down. And they also have juggle properties on them. Which is why stuff like L Tatsu, Fireball, DP works. And so basically you get a better version of your EX Fireball. You also get a better version of your Air EX Fireball. It's pretty much 2 normal fireballs that get fired here. And in addition to firing these normal fireballs, there's less startup, less recovery on the fireballs. And you don't have to be jumping forward when you fire them. You can shoot them off of a neutral jump, or you can shoot them jumping back. So what a lot of Akuma players will like to do is just go Shin Akuma mode, or like Super Street Fighter 2 Akuma mode, and just start spamming air fireballs. You know what? All you need is a tiny bit of damage. That's a valid way to play them. The lights will go very slowly and at a minimal arc. The heavies will travel faster at more of an arc, and the mediums are, well, they're mediums. They're very easy to combo out of. And they're just overall amazing. These air fireballs are horrendously OP. If Akuma's V-Trigger was infinite, he would be the best in the game by far. Next up, you get this Go Shoryu. Once again, I'm not going to say this is a better version of EXDP, but it's a better version of EXDP. It, not only does it do more damage and stun than your normal EX Shoryuken, it also gives you a perfect meaty afterwards. It causes one of those semi-hard knockdowns where your opponent cannot back rise and they can still quick rise. And it's just an amazing Shoryuken overall. It has invincible startup, obviously. And it is a force to be reckoned with. And Akuma gets 3 of these in V-Trigger. And so pretty much V-Trigger is basically like an extra battery for your meter if all you're spending your meter on is EX Shoryukens. It basically gives you better versions of those EX moves, which is insane. And this makes Akuma a real force to be reckoned with. If you hate characters with invincible DPs, you are going to hate Akuma, because he can have up to 6 just stored away. Alright, so in addition to the enhanced EX moves that Akuma receives when he's in V-Trigger, he also gains access to an enhanced version of a critical art. And this is the move that we all know and love as the Raging Demon. Now, this move does a good chunk of damage. I believe it always does 400 when not scaled, and it'll almost never scale because I had good luck comboing into this. It is effectively a command grab, meaning it's unblockable, and it does start up on the first frame. However, due to the fact that the range on it it's pretty much like 1 pixel. There's no range on this. You have to be at point blank in order for this to actually connect. And while it does move forward, so unless you're at this point blank range when you activate it, the opponent will be able to neutral jump after the critical art flash. And so basically when you activate it, you want to make sure you're at this point blank distance. However, due to the nature of the input, light punch forward, light kick, heavy punch, it's impossible to input this fast enough from neutral without having at least that first jab come out. And so oftentimes when you're trying to connect with a Raging Demon, you're going to have to use some sort of a gimmick to actually get it to work. And so the easiest and scariest of these gimmicks that you can use in order to get Raging Demon to work is what I like to call the Time Stop Demon. And so what you can use this as is a tool for whiff punishing your opponent's long-winded, just anything that has a long animation. And so the most common example that I like to use is Fireball. And so I've set Ken here to do lots of long-winded things and then neutral jump. So I'm going to start with this Fireball. So you can react to a Fireball with that V-Trigger animation and then buffer that Raging Demon input towards the latter end of that time stop V-Trigger flash. And if you time that and space that correctly, you can't be too far, but if you space it and time it correctly, you can actually punish fireballs for that. You can go straight through them, as the critical art animation is 100% invincible. And this isn't just limited to fireballs. you can also punish, you can whiff punish long-winded normals like Ken's standing roundhouse. So as you see, I connected there during the recovery for that animation. And because it's invincible, you can even catch people during the startup of their animations. Or during the active frames or what have you. So I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate a few more situations where this works. Standing heavy punch a little bit more tricky because it's got less recovery than standing heavy kick, but it still works. I did a little bit preemptively there, but it's just important to take away there that you can absolutely react to certain long-winded normals. Sweeps are a very common way to actually get this whiff punish, since sweeps always have a lot of recovery. Although some sweeps will actually outrange the optimal range for whiff punishing with this demon, so you want to watch out for stuff like Karen's and Urian sweeps trying to do stuff like this. And then additionally, Ken's run and certain other command dashes can absolutely be reacted to like this. Matter of fact, they're even easier because of the fact that they actually come closer to you during the animation of that dash. And so a lot of times if somebody is even trying to normal dash in your face, you can just activate that that V trigger and not have to worry about the consequences, and it'll work most of the time. You can also use it to punish certain very far jump-ins. That's also a good application of using that time stop beam. However, you will sometimes run into the situation where you're already in V-Trigger and want to Raging Demon your opponent. And so for these kinds of situations, once you've already activated V-Trigger, if you want to use Raging Demon, what you have to do is mask it behind a normal. And so a lot of times what you'll see, there are three main normals that people like to use. One of which that's been prominent in a lot of previous Street Fighter games has been overhead into Raging Demon. That's the old classic. And what you do there is you just mask the Raging Demon input during the startup of that overhead. And you want to be careful not to do that too late, because it is possible to accidentally cancel during the active frames. And if you connect with any hits of this overhead, then you will actually end up pushing yourself out of range. You want to do it during those startup frames. And another way to make this work a little bit easier is if instead of overhead, you use standing roundhouse. And this works when your opponent is crouching or when your opponent's waking up off the ground. You can just whiff a standing roundhouse and then input Raging Demon during any part in that animation. And it's a lot easier to do because it gives you a much bigger window. Although generally speaking, if you can input Raging Demon fast enough to do it off of this, you can do it off of overhead as well. And then the third example that I could give, and this is actually my favorite version of it to use, is the parry demon. There we go. You can either do it so fast that you manage to get the input faster than that palm can actually come out, which is within a 15-frame window. Or the alternative is to actually do the input slower. And if you slow it down a little bit, what you'll end up doing is this. You'll actually end up doing the V-skill kick instead of the V-skill palm, which gives you a bit larger of a window. And so the way that I'm doing this basically is I have a button bound to V-skill, both mediums, and then I'm pressing medium and light punch at the same time, and then following that up with the rest of the demon. So V-skill plus light punch, and then light punch forward, light kick, heavy punch. And so the advantage of using this parry demon, as opposed to the other versions of it that I demonstrated earlier, like roundhouse or overhead, is that you can actually use this on your opponent's wake-ups, and for certain characters, well, for everybody, you'll beat a wake-up jab if they happen to wake-up jab. And for certain characters, you'll even be able to beat their wake-up DPs. And Ken is a perfect example of this, which is why I picked him. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this really quickly. A little bit too early here. There we go. So as you see, if you time it correctly, and the timing that is a little bit later than you would do normally meaty somebody on their wake up, it's about the same timing with which you would say late tech on somebody's wake up. But if you time it correctly, you can absorb a hit of whatever they're waking up with and still get that instant demon even if they block. And so that's one of the main reasons I like to use that time stop parry demon, or not the parry demon rather. Another situation in which you can use Raging Demon is in what I like to call the corpse hop situation. So if I were to sweep my opponent when I were a corpse hop, let's actually turn off the wake up DP. So let's go ahead and get a knockdown here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock down the opponent. And then I'm going to hop over their corpse, so to speak, with a light Tatsu. And then input the Raging Demon. There we go. And I actually was a little bit misplaced there. As you saw, there was a little bit of animation there before I actually... before it actually went into the animation. If you do it correctly, you'll see the critical eye flash, and then it'll immediately go into the Raging Demon animation. And so the main factor there is spacing. And this can absolutely be manually timed. But there are certain setups that you can use to also make this work. There we go, that was a good one. And so that's another way that you can effectively mask the Raging Demon input. Now, before I end the video and go into the combo demonstration like I usually do at the end of these videos, I want to put in an extra section really quickly and talk about Blockstrings and pressure with Akuma. And the reason I want to talk about this is because this is definitely Akuma's strong suit. This is the one thing that Akuma can do better than almost anybody else in the cast. And if you don't take advantage of this, there's really no point in picking Akuma to begin with. And so what am I talking about when I say Blockstrings and pressure? What I mean is the ability to not only hit confirm Akuma's combos, but to know how to do the right thing on block to keep your opponent guessing. And how to keep them on the defensive and keep your pressure up for as long as possible and maximize your potential to open up the opponent. And so I want to talk about 3 Blockstrings and the ways that you can use them, 3 hit confirms rather, and the ways that you can use them to open up your opponent. And so the first one I want to talk about is pretty much the easiest one to use, which is crouching heavy punch. So as I mentioned earlier, you can hit confirm this button by itself if you just practice it enough. It's very easy to melee, it's very active, and it causes a crush counter on counter hit. So I highly encourage everybody to practice hit confirming this button right here. And so, of course, once you hit confirm it, you go into standing medium kick, and then whatever. But the question is, what do you do on block? Well, there are lots of advantages to being able to hit confirm off of one button. One of these advantages is the fact that you can just, on block, walk up and throw. It's a bit of a walk, so if your opponent is mashing buttons, you can get clipped here, but that doesn't mean that it's not an effective tool. Another thing you can do is you can come back straight in with a forward heavy punch. And that brings me to our second hit confirm. Forward heavy punch, standing jab. So, as I believe I mentioned earlier, on crouching opponents, if you connect with this, you can combo medium Tatsu, and on standing opponents, you can go into light Tatsu, or whatever. And then on counter hits, even if they're crouching, you can go into medium kick, into whatever. So it's important to know those 3 hit confirms with that. But the question is, what do you do on block? That's the important question when it comes to Akuma's offense. Well, on block, this is +1, so a jab is your best bet. You'd be walking pretty far if you were to try and take throw after this. However, that is pretty effective. Alternatively, you can go for a standing light kick into tick throw. Again, you are still walking pretty far there. But what I like to do is you can do forward heavy punch, jab, light demon flip. And I believe you can also do a medium. Yep, it still reaches and brings you even closer. And so this is one of those tools that you can use to continue pressure almost endlessly until your opponent learns to anti-air your demon flip. And as long as you keep alternating between your lights and your medium demon flips, you can keep this going pretty much forever. And it's a very, very powerful offense because of the fact that this demon flip is plus. and it frame traps very well into this crouching medium punch. And of course, if the demon flip actually hits, you get a meaty anyway, so you can continue your offense that way. And so you're basically, when you're doing this, you're forcing your opponent to steal their turn back. And that's one of the most powerful things about Akuma. And then what you see me doing here is the third hit confirm that I want to talk about, which is crouching medium punch into standing medium kick. Now this is my go-to hit confirm for Akuma. This is the one that I use 90% of the time, because it's so powerful. This leads into a lot of Akuma's bread and butter combos. As a matter of fact, you're going to see pretty much all of the combo demonstrations in the next section are going to start like this. And when you're in this range, this is what you should pretty much always be going for. And the reason I like this crouching medium punch, standing medium kick over the similar hit confirm from crouching heavy punch is because of the fact that it causes less pushback and it kills less frames. And so something like crouching medium punch into walk-up throw is a lot more effective than crouching heavy punch into walk-up throw. Just because it's easier to catch your opponent off guard doing something like that. And just like I demonstrated with forward heavy punch in a jab, you can cancel this in a demon flip very easily. Of course, that's not to say that that's your only option on block for how to continue this block string. You can also do something like crouching medium punch, standing medium kick, and then EX fireball. You can keep your block string going that way. It's a little bit wasteful to spend meter just to stay plus, but it's good to know that's an option. And so basically, in summary, you've got 3 hit confirms, all 3 of which are heavily plus on block and can be looped into each other using that demon flip. You've got crouching heavy punch, you've got forward heavy punch into jab, and then you've also got crouching medium punch, standing medium kick. And now, as a training regimen that I often like to go through, I like to set my opponent to be Ryu, and then record his guard recovery actions. So let's go ahead and set recording slot 1 to parry. And then let's set all the other recording slots just to hold down back, so that he ends up blocking. And what this means is that 4 out of 5 times, Ryu's just going to do nothing but block when he blocks an attack. He's just going to guard. But then 1 out of 5 times, he's going to respond with a parry. And so what our training regimen is to turn on all of these guard recovery actions and set Ryu to guard all. And let's also set him to random recovery. And so what we want to do is employ these block strings. And it's our job to keep our frame traps tight enough so that the parry doesn't beat them. And also pick up the combo when we run into situations like that where we get a hit. Because it will happen eventually. So what we're doing here is we're testing our reflexes and our hit confirms. So you see what I did there? As soon as Ryu let up his defense and pressed a button and I got the counter hit, I picked up the combo. And that's what this this training is basically teaching us to do. It's teaching us, A, to be able to keep up our block strings without hesitation, just to make this muscle memory, essentially. And it's B, teaching us how to hit confirm while doing this, which is a very powerful skill to have with Akuma. So yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that you can feel free to mix up this this training regimen on your own and set some wake-up actions. But the important thing here is to set the dummy to do one thing 1 in 5 times and then block 4 out of 5 times, and then just practice learning how to deal with that. And so if you learn to employ these kinds of training regimens with Akuma, eventually your offense will become pretty solid, especially once you start to learn to mix in stuff like throws and shimmies. And that's pretty easy to do. It's just instead of going for these endless block strings, just mix in a throw. And if you want to train your opponent to react to throws at pretty much the exact same point, like let's say you start throwing after Demon Flip every single time, and your opponent starts teching, then what you can do is you can take advantage of that trained reaction by shimmying, by just walking back and pressing standing medium kick, or walking a little bit further back and pressing standing heavy punch. Oh. Just like that. So I encourage you to just spend some time, just make this your little idle training regimen, say while you're watching streams or watching YouTube videos. And eventually, if you make stuff like this muscle memory, you're going to severely piss some people off online who don't know how to deal with this kind of pressure. Alright, thank you for watching. My name has been Mountlover. Please enjoy this combo demonstration that I've got lined up for you next.